She uttered a single remark at dinner, and I rose and left without uttering a word. My wife's harsh comment in front of her coworkers was unpleasant enough, but what I discovered later that night in her files was far more disturbing. My 10-year-old son's medical issues were only the start of her twisted manipulations. I thought I truly knew my wife, but I had been completely mistaken. My name is Henry Reed. I'm 48, and until 3 months ago, I believed my marriage was solid. Rosalie and I had been together for 12 years, married for 10. She worked as the regional manager for Lux Cosmetics Corporation, earning a six-figure salary, while I ran my small tech consulting business from her home office. This arrangement worked because her corporate insurance covered Liam's medical needs. Insulin pumps and continuous glucose monitors are far from cheap. That Tuesday evening began like any other. Rosalie had invited me to her company's quarterly dinner at the Riverside Club. "It's important that you come," she said, adjusting her diamond earrings in the bathroom mirror. The executives wanted to meet their spouses. I should have felt proud. Instead, something in her tone made my stomach twist. Liam was staying with my father, retired Judge Winston Reed, for the evening. At 74, Dad was still sharp as ever and one of the few people I fully trusted with my son's care. "Enjoy the Dog and Pony show," he said with a knowing smile as I dropped Liam off. The Riverside Club exuded old money and even older traditions: crystal chandeliers, mahogany paneling, and waiters who moved like dancers. I felt out of place in my finest suit, the one I reserved for client meetings and funerals. Rosalie, on the other hand, glided effortlessly through the room, her red dress drawing every gaze. We were seated at table 7 with her immediate team: Derek, the sales director with perfect teeth; Miranda, the marketing VP who spoke in corporate jargon; and Nash, the new district supervisor transferred from Atlanta 6 months ago. Nash looked like a magazine model, tall, silver-haired, and wearing a watch worth more than my monthly revenue. The conversation revolved around quarterly projections and marketing strategies. I nodded at the right moments, sipped my wine, and tried to appear engaged. Then Derek shared a story about a failed product launch, and everyone laughed. The atmosphere was light, relaxed, until Rosalie turned to me, her voice clear across the table. "Henry, should I pretend you understand any of this? Or should we just acknowledge you for appearance's sake?" The table froze. Forks paused midair. Derek's laugh died. Miranda suddenly became fascinated with her salmon. Nash watched me with a sharp, assessing gaze, as if noting my reaction for later. Heat surged to my face, and my hands trembled slightly as I set down my glass. 12 years of marriage, and she had never spoken to me like this in public, never dismissed me so coldly. I stood, placed my napkin on the table, and left without a word. Behind me, I heard Rosalie's nervous laugh, pretending it was a joke. I didn't look back. I sat in my Ford pickup in the Riverside Club parking lot for 20 minutes, gripping the steering wheel like it was my anchor. The valet kept glancing my way, probably wondering if I was losing it. Maybe I was. My phone buzzed twice with texts from Rosalie, no doubt. I ignored them, unwilling to risk saying something I'd regret. Instead, I started the engine and drove to Dad's to pick up Liam. The radio played a country song about broken promises, somehow fitting. I had built my life on reliability, fixing servers for small businesses, rushing to the ER when Liam's blood sugar spiked, never complaining, never asking for recognition, just doing what needed to be done. Yet, in Rosalie's world, I was mere furniture, tolerated at best, mocked at worst. Dad's porch light was on as I arrived. Through the window, I saw him and Liam at the kitchen table, likely working on homework or one of Dad's beloved thousand-piece puzzles. Normal, peaceful. Everything I had just left behind felt poisonous in comparison. "You're back early," Dad said as I knocked. Judge Winston Reed had always spoken little, but his eyes missed nothing. One look at my face, and he stepped aside to let me in. "Henry," Liam called from the table, face lighting up. "Grandpa's teaching me chess. Want to see my castle move?" "In a minute, buddy," I replied, forcing a smile. "How's your glucose? Did you check it like we talked about?" Liam nodded enthusiastically twice, holding up his blood sugar log, meticulously filled in with his careful 10-year-old handwriting. Dad appeared at my side with a steaming cup of black coffee. "Rough night?" he asked quietly. "Something like that," I replied. "Thanks for taking care of him." "Anytime." His voice carried the weight of 30 years on the bench. He had heard every sob story, every excuse, every justification, yet he also knew when to stay silent. Liam, why don't you show your dad that chess move you were so excited about? For the next hour, I sat at Dad's kitchen table while my son eagerly taught me about rooks, bishops, and something called en passant that made no sense at all. Liam's excitement was contagious, and for a brief moment, I nearly forgot Rosalie's words ringing in my ears. Nearly. My phone had been buzzing nonstop, 7 messages now. Part of me wanted to read them, to see if she realized what she had done. But a larger part of me wasn't ready for her excuses or deflections. Dad, can we stay here tonight? Liam asked suddenly, looking up from the chessboard. Grandpa promised pancakes for breakfast. I glanced at Dad, who gave a subtle nod, understanding without words. Sure, son, I said. We can stay. But as I tucked Liam into the guest bed an hour later, I knew this was more than just avoiding an awkward talk with my wife. Something had changed tonight, a boundary crossed that I wasn't sure we could undo. Honestly, I wasn't even sure I wanted to try. Dad's pancakes were legendary, but I barely tasted them. Liam chattered about his blood sugar readings and asked if we could visit the science museum later. Normal kid stuff, blissfully unaware that his parents' marriage might be unraveling. Henry, Dad said quietly, refilling my coffee, we need to talk. After Liam settled in the living room with his tablet, Dad led me to his study, the same room where he helped me with homework 30 years ago, where we had discussed college and career choices. Now, we were talking about my failing marriage. She called here last night, Dad said without preamble. 3 times. Wanted to know if you were here. What did you tell her? That you and Liam were safe. Nothing more. Dad sank into his leather chair, studying me with those sharp, judicial eyes. Son, I've seen many marriages go sideways over the years. Court cases, custody battles, the works. But I've never seen you this shaken. I told him everything. The dinner, Rosalie's comment, the way her co-workers looked at me like I was some charity case. Dad listened without interruption, his expression darkening with each detail. Henry, he said when I finished, that woman humiliated you deliberately in public. That's not a joke or a slip of the tongue. That's calculated cruelty. Maybe I'm overreacting. Bull. His voice carried the authority that had ruled courtrooms for decades. You've been married 10 years. She knows exactly how her words affect you. This was intentional. My phone buzzed again. Another text, the 15th since last night. Have you read any of those? Dad asked. I shook my head. Not ready. Good. Don't let her control the narrative until you've had time to think. Dad stood, walking toward his bookshelf. Consider this. Liam's medical needs tie you to her insurance. That gives her enormous leverage over you, whether she realizes it or not. I had thought of that before, but hearing him say it aloud made my stomach sink. You think she'd use Liam's diabetes against me? I asked. People show their true selves when they feel secure. Last night, she felt secure enough to mock you publicly. Imagine what happens when she feels threatened. Before I could respond, Liam appeared in the doorway. Dad, Mom's here. She's in the driveway. Through the window, I could see Rosalie's white BMW running. She was checking her reflection in the rearview mirror, preparing her approach, still playing the game, trying to manage this situation. No, Dad said. I straightened my shoulders. This is my fight. Rosalie stepped out of the BMW in designer sunglasses and a perfectly pressed business suit. She looked more like she was heading to a board meeting than trying to fix a marriage. Even her smile seemed calculated, the one she reserved for difficult clients. Henry, she said, walking toward Dad's porch. We need to talk. I figured you'd show up eventually. I replied, stepping outside and closing the door behind me. No way was I letting this conversation happen in front of Liam. Look, about last night. She began, but I held up my hand. Before you say another word, I want you to know I heard what your colleague said after I left. Her perfectly composed expression faltered for a brief moment. What do you mean? I came back, stood outside the dining room, and listened to your little performance. Derek asking if I'd throw soup, Miranda calling me well-trained, you laughing along like it was all some big joke. Rosalie's jaw tightened. Henry, you're being overly sensitive. It was just workplace banter. Workplace banter. The words left my mouth harder than I intended. You publicly humiliated me, then entertained your colleagues by discussing how pathetic your husband is. That's your idea of banter. I tried to ease the tension after she stormed out like a child. She shot back. Do you have any idea how humiliating that was for me? Walking out in the middle of dinner with my whole team watching. Embarrassing for you, I said, stepping closer, my voice dropping to the calm tone I used when clients tried to blame me for their IT disasters. You were embarrassed. Not ashamed of what you said. Not sorry for humiliating me. Just embarrassed by my reaction. Henry, you're twisting this, she argued. No, Rosalie, I said. For the first time in 10 years, I was seeing clearly. I pulled out my phone and showed her the screen filled with unread messages, 15 texts, not a single apology, only excuses and demands that I come home and act like nothing happened. She removed her sunglasses, and I noticed something in her eyes I'd never seen before. Calculation. As if she were running scenarios to see which approach would get her what she wanted. Henry, be reasonable, she said, her voice softening to the tone she used when she wanted something. We have a good life. Liam needs stability. Your consulting business depends on the insurance I provide. Are you really going to throw all that away over one comment? There it was, the threat Dad had warned me about, cloaked in concern for our son. Is that what you think this is about? I asked. Money insurance? I think you're having a midlife crisis, she replied. But we can work through it. Maybe you need therapy or a vacation, or what I need, I interrupted, is a wife who doesn't see me as a burden to manage. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then Rosalie put her sunglasses back on, smoothing her skirt with practiced ease. When you're ready to act like an adult, she said, turning toward her car, you know where to find me. Watching her drive away, I realized something important had just happened. She had shown me exactly who she was, and I had shown her that I wasn't the pushover she expected. The question now was what to do next. 3 days passed without contact from Rosalie. She drove Liam to school and picked him up with mechanical efficiency. No small talk, no eye contact, just the bare minimum to maintain appearances. Meanwhile, I stayed at Dad's, helping Liam with homework and trying to process what my marriage had become. Henry, Dad said Thursday evening, settling into a chair with a legal pad. We need to talk strategy. Strategy for what? I asked. For protecting yourself and that boy? You think this ends with her saying sorry and promising to do better? Dad shook his head. Son, I've seen this pattern before. She's calculating her next move. That's when I remembered Rosalie's work laptop. She had been using our home network for months, syncing files to our shared cloud storage to work from home. If she was planning something, there might be traces. Dad, can you watch Liam for a couple of hours? I need to check something at the house. The house felt different when I let myself in through the garage, colder, despite the thermostat reading 72 degrees. Her car wasn't there, probably working late again or whatever she called her Thursday night activities. Her laptop sat in the kitchen where she always left it, plugged in and humming softly. The password prompt appeared, but I knew her pattern. Liam's birthday plus her initials. Security had never been her strong suit. The desktop opened to the usual chaos of corporate files and presentation folders. At first glance, everything looked normal: sales reports, marketing campaigns, team notes. Then I noticed a folder labeled Personal Projects buried in her documents. Inside was a spreadsheet titled Financial Overview Q2 Planning. My blood ran cold as I opened it. This document wasn't about Lux Cosmetics. It was about us. Our joint accounts, my business income, Liam's medical expenses, even the equity in our home. Everything itemized and categorized, as if she were preparing for something. One tab read, Custody Considerations. My hand started shaking as I clicked it. The spreadsheet detailed Liam's daily routine, his medical needs, his school schedule, but it wasn't written from a mother's perspective. It read like a legal brief, outlining why his father's emotional instability and uncertain small business income made her the more suitable primary guardian. There were notes about my reaction at dinner, described as volatile and unpredictable. My 3-day absence from home was labeled abandonment of parental duties. But the final tab made my stomach drop completely. Insurance transition options. She had researched how to maintain Liam's medical coverage through Cobra if we divorced, calculating costs and time limits. She had even reached out to other insurance providers to compare pediatric diabetes coverage. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment act or just a rough patch in our marriage. This was deliberate. She had been planning our divorce while still sharing our bed, using every interaction as evidence for her eventual case. I heard her car in the driveway and quickly closed everything, making sure to clear the browser history. By the time Rosalie walked through the front door, I was sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee, appearing as if I had just arrived. "Henry," she said, surprised. "I didn't expect you here." "It's still my house, Rosalie. At least for now," I replied, setting down my coffee and studying her expression. "Have you been thinking about what I said? About being reasonable?" "Oh, I've been thinking plenty," I said, my tone giving her pause. For the first time since that dinner, she looked uncertain. "Henry, if this is about counseling or working things out, it's about protecting my son," I said quietly, "from people who see him as a chess piece rather than a child." Her face went pale, and I knew she understood exactly what I meant. "She what?" Dad's voice carried the same authority that had commanded lawyers for 3 decades. I had printed the most damning pages from Rosalie's spreadsheet and laid them across Dad's dining table like evidence in a trial. Liam was upstairs, safely immersed in his video games and evening insulin routine. "She's been documenting everything," I said. "Every conversation, every decision, every time I had to leave work for Liam's medical appointments." She was building a custody case. Dad studied the pages through his reading glasses, his expression darkening with each one. "This custody considerations tab," he said. "Henry, she's portraying you as an unfit father." "Based on what? Taking care of my son? Running a business that allows me to be present when he needs me?" "Based on narrative control," Dad replied. "Look at the wording. Subject demonstrates emotional volatility when confronted with reasonable feedback." That's not describing your dinner reaction. That's legal positioning. I slumped in my chair. "So what do I do?" "She holds all the cards, the insurance, the steady income, the ability to hire better lawyers." Dad removed his glasses and fixed me with that penetrating gaze that had forced guilty defendants to confess from the witness stand. "You're thinking like a victim, not a fighter. She may have money and insurance, but she's made critical mistakes." "Like what?" "Like documenting her own manipulation. This financial spreadsheet proves premeditation. She wasn't working on your marriage. She was planning its destruction while lying to your face." Dad tapped the papers. "And this note about using Liam's medical needs as leverage? That's parental alienation territory." My phone buzzed with a text from Rosalie. "Need to discuss practical arrangements. Can you meet tomorrow?" Dad saw me reading it. "Don't respond yet. First, we make copies of everything. Then we consult my old colleague, Tom Bradley. He's the best family attorney in the state and owes me favors." "Dad, I can't afford." "You can't afford not to. Besides, Tom has grandkids with special needs. He'll understand what's at stake." Dad stood, gathering the papers. "Henry, your wife thinks she's playing chess while you're playing checkers. Time to show her she's wrong." That night, I lay in Dad's guest room, staring at the ceiling. Liam slept peacefully beside me, his glucose monitor glowing softly in the dark. Every few hours it beeped quietly, confirming his levels were stable, a simple sound, but it represented everything I was fighting for. Rosalie had miscalculated. She saw my quiet nature as weakness, my devotion to Liam as limitation, but she never realized that protecting my son wasn't a burden. It was my purpose, my strength. Tomorrow, I would show her the difference. Tom Bradley's office occupied the top floor of a downtown building. At 63, he moved with the confidence of 30 years winning difficult cases. Dad had called in a favor, and within 2 hours, we sat in leather chairs reviewing evidence. "Henry," Tom said, spreading Rosalie's documents across his desk, "your wife made a critical mistake. She documented her intent to manipulate custody proceedings while still married. Legally, this shows premeditation to use your son as a weapon." Tom tapped the papers with his pen. "Any judge will recognize this as parental alienation tactics." Dad leaned forward. "Tom, what about the insurance threat? Cobra laws guarantee continued coverage for dependent children. Since Henry's business shows steady income, he can maintain Liam's coverage independently." Tom smiled. Relief flooded me. Liam's medical needs were secure. "Better than that," Tom added. "Her own documentation proves she views your son's diabetes as a control tool rather than a parenting responsibility." Tom pulled out a legal pad. "We file first. Henry, primary custody petition based on documented emotional manipulation and financial threats. We'll request temporary support for medical expenses and exclusive home use." Can we win, son? She had handed us everything we needed, her own words, planning documents, even admissions of using medical leverage. She thought she was playing chess, but she had just delivered checkmate. As we left, Dad patted my shoulder. Henry, your wife underestimated two things: how far a good father will go to protect his child, and how dangerous it is to threaten a judge's grandson. That evening, Liam and I sat at Dad's table, working on simple addition, his tongue sticking out as he focused on each number. Dad, he said without looking up, are you and Mom getting divorced? The question hit hard. What makes you think that, buddy? Kids at school talk about it. When parents sleep in different rooms and have quiet, angry conversations. He looked at me with serious brown eyes. Plus, Mom's been different since my blood sugar got scary. I remembered that night. Liam's glucose had dropped dangerously low at 2 a.m., and I had handled the emergency while Rosalie simply watched from the doorway. Sometimes grown-ups are problems to figure out, I said carefully. But we both love you very much. I know you love me, Dad. You show it every day, he replied, returning to his homework, then added quietly, but I don't think Mom likes worrying about my diabetes. My 10-year-old had articulated my deepest fear. Rosalie saw his medical needs as a burden rather than a part of who he was. Liam, your diabetes doesn't make you less lovable. It means we're extra careful taking care of you. He nodded solemnly. Grandpa says my brain is good at math because it calculates so many things about food and medicine. After Liam went to sleep, I made a decision. Tomorrow, I'd stop reacting to Rosalie's manipulations and start controlling the situation. Derek called Tuesday morning while I reviewed client contracts at Dad's table. His voice was nervous. Henry, I need to talk to you about something. Can we meet for coffee? Derek had always been decent among Rosalie's colleagues, the one who looked uncomfortable during her dinner performance. We met at a neutral downtown cafe. Henry, what I'm about to tell you could cost me my job, Derek began, stirring his coffee nervously. But after that dinner and seeing how Rosalie's been acting, I can't stay silent. What's going on? I asked. She's been using company resources for personal matters, legal research, document preparation, even having Nash help strategize what she calls domestic reorganization. Derek handed me screenshots of internal emails. Look at this thread from last week. The email chain was damning. Rosalie was discussing how to present herself as the stable parent using company letterhead for character references, planning to relocate with Liam to Atlanta where Nash had connections. Derek, why are you showing me this? Because she's been lying to everyone, including her own team. She said you were having a breakdown and would abandon family responsibilities. Derek's voice grew firmer. But I've seen you at Liam's school events, doctor visits. You're not unstable. He handed me a USB drive. Everything's on here. Email threads, document drafts, even audio recordings of strategy sessions discussing using Liam's medical needs as leverage. Audio recordings. Nash had documented everything under the guise of legal protection. But Henry, some of what she says about Liam. Derek shook his head. No mother should talk about her child's medical condition like it's a business problem. That afternoon, I listened to the recordings with Tom Bradley. Rosalie's voice was clear, calculated, explaining how to position Liam's diabetes as evidence of the family's need for her corporate stability, framing his medical emergencies as proof of my inability to provide proper care. Tom, she's not just using our son as a chess piece. She's convinced herself she's the victim. Henry, narcissists always rewrite history to make themselves the hero, Tom replied. But she documented her own manipulation. The corporate investigation Derek had triggered was already underway. Using company resources for personal legal strategy was grounds for immediate termination. What happens next? Tom smiled grimly. We file tomorrow morning. A full custody petition supported by her own documented evidence. By the time it's over, she'll face unemployment and a custody battle at the same time. That night, I tucked Liam into bed at Dad's house, reading our usual bedtime story. As he drifted off to sleep, I realized something had shifted. I wasn't Rosalie's victim anymore. I was Liam's protector, armed with the truth and ready to fight. The custody papers were filed Thursday morning. By noon, Rosalie's world began to collapse. Tom Bradley had coordinated everything perfectly: corporate investigation, custody petition, financial audit, all hitting at once. Rosalie called 17 times that day. I didn't answer a single one. On Friday, there was a knock at Dad's door. Rosalie stood there, looking haggard, her usual polish replaced by desperation, dark circles under her eyes, wrinkled clothes, hands trembling. "Henry, we need to talk." "Actually, we don't," I said. "My lawyer says all communication goes through him now." "They fired me," she admitted, her voice breaking. "Lux terminated my contract for misuse of company resources. I can't afford lawyers. I can't fight this custody battle." She couldn't use our son's medical needs as a weapon anymore. Liam appeared behind me, drawn by the voices. Seeing his mother cry, his face filled with confusion. "Mom, are you okay?" Rosalie knelt to his level, trying to regain composure. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just some grown-up problems." "Is it about my diabetes?" he asked, his voice heartbreakingly direct. She looked at him, really looked for the first time in months. "No, baby. Your diabetes isn't a problem. You're perfect just as you are." But Liam had seen and heard too much. He stepped closer to me, taking my hand. "Dad takes good care of me," he said simply. "He knows all my numbers and keeps me safe." After Rosalie left, Dad and I sat on his back porch while Liam played in the yard. "She's broken," I said, completely defeated. "Good," Dad replied. "Maybe now she'll stop trying to ruin our son's life." Tom had already explained the likely outcome. With her job loss and documented manipulation, Rosalie's custody case was hopeless. She would get supervised visitation, nothing more. Liam and I could start fresh. New house, new beginning. No more tiptoeing around someone who saw his medical needs as a burden. That evening, I watched Liam check his glucose levels, a routine so natural he barely noticed. He was healthy, happy, surrounded by people who loved him unconditionally. "Dad," he asked, "when we get our own place, can we get a dog?" "Sure, buddy. What kind?" "One that needs extra care too, so he understands what it feels like to be different but still loved." Sometimes, wisdom comes from the most unexpected places. 6 months later, Liam and I live in a small house across town. Dad lives just 5 minutes away. Liam's new school has an excellent diabetes management program. And yes, we got a 3-legged rescue dog named Charlie. I started a support group for single parents raising children with medical conditions. The first meeting was awkward. 5 parents sharing struggles with diabetes, epilepsy, severe asthma. But as we talked, I realized we weren't victims. We were advocates. People try to make you feel like your child's condition is a burden, even those who should love them unconditionally. But once you reject that narrative, everything changes. Rosalie visited every other weekend under court supervision. She was different, quieter, more attentive, genuinely present. Losing everything had taught her what truly mattered. "You know what's funny?" I told Dad one Sunday as Liam and Charlie played in the backyard. "She tried to use his diabetes against me, but it actually made me a better father." That's the thing about weaponizing love. It usually backfires. The biggest surprise came when Rosalie requested increased visitation. She had started therapy, found a smaller job, and seemed genuinely interested in learning how to care for Liam during overnight visits. "I want to learn how to properly care for him," she said. It took months of supervised visits and diabetes education classes, but she eventually earned overnight privileges. She never became the mother I had hoped for, but she became present in ways that mattered. The real victory came when Liam, now 11, gave a presentation on diabetes awareness to his class. "Some people think having diabetes makes you weak," he said confidently, "but it actually makes you stronger because you have to take responsibility for your health every day. And it teaches people who love you what real love looks like." After school, I found him helping a younger child with a broken arm on the monkey bars. "Why are you helping him?" I asked. "Because when someone needs extra help, you don't leave them behind. You figure out how to help them succeed." That night, I called Dad to tell him about Liam's presentation. "Sounds like you raised a wise young man," he said. "Actually, I think he raised me," I replied. "He showed me what unconditional love really means." Looking back, I'm grateful for that dinner at the Riverside Club, not because Rosalie humiliated me, but because it forced me to choose between accepting her version of our family or fighting for something better. I chose to fight, and I won everything that truly mattered.